Yesterday we talked about arrays and how helpful they are. In fact, we saw that the string data type is built upon a character array, and we would have a hard time working with text in our code if it weren't for the string data type. So in my book, that makes arrays very helpful. And as you program, as you gain experience and everything, you will find that arrays are invaluable. Not necessarily just arrays, but other array-like things that we will talk about tomorrow. But today I want to talk about a feature of C# when used in conjunction with an array is a very, very nice little feature that basically allows us to define a method with an unlimited amount of parameters. The syntax just basically looks like an array. There's a special keyword that we have to use, but we essentially define an array as a parameter, and then we have an unlimited amount of parameters that we can choose from. Now, the limitation being that all of those parameters have to be of the same data type, because an array is a group of values, all of the same data type, so that rule still applies. But we will eventually get there. We just have to kind of build baby step by baby step. So I want to point your attention to the code that I have already written. We have a string array called names, and it contains 4 names: James, John, Jennifer, and Jackie. I've also created a person object using my information, and I call the sayHello method and pass that string array. Now, naturally, this method does not exist. We have a sayHello method, but it does not accept a string array, so that's why we're getting this red squiggly. The idea of this approach is that we can say hello to multiple people without having to call sayHello multiple times, and also not having to say hello James, hello John, hello Jennifer, hello Jackie. We can just say hello James, John, Jennifer, and Jackie. Now, naturally, in person we could actually say hi everyone, but that doesn't fit into this demonstration. So we can actually write line 34, this line here, we can write this a different way. And this is something that I would do as well. Instead of creating the array and assigning it to a variable, if I had the values that I needed, I would just create the array and pass it at the same time. But, we're still dealing with all of this extra syntax, and it would be really nice if we didn't have to do that because, well, that's ugly. And if you don't do it a lot, you can forget that syntax. So it would be nice if we could just pass in the string values separated by commas. Now, this looks a lot like, having an overload that accepts 4 string arguments. And we could write that code. We could write a code that accepted 5 string arguments, or 6 or 7 or 8. But the problem there is we have to add a new overload each time we want to add another string argument. And that's just poor design. But we do have a feature, and I don't really know what it's called, but it uses a keyword called params. And when used in conjunction with an array, we can basically define a method with an unlimited amount of parameters of the type of the array. So in the case of our code here, we could create sayHello with an unlimited amount of string parameters. So to do that, let's open up our person.cs file, and let's write another overload. So public string sayHello, and then the first thing we write within our parameter list is a keyword called params. And then we specify a string array, give it a name, and that's it. Of course, we have to write the code inside of it, but let's look at program.cs. We can see that all of our red squigglies are gone now. One for line 34, passing the actual array to sayHello. This new overload fits that programming model, and also passing multiple string arguments. The red squiggly is gone from that as well, because that's also being fit by this programming model as well. So we can add even more names. Let's say hello Jeffrey, and hello Josh, and I can't think of another girl's name that starts with the J, so we're just going to say hello Jeremy. Not me, Jeremy, but I know many other Jeremys. So we can just keep adding string arguments all day long, and sayHello is going to execute. So this is a very nice feature, and it's all made possible, one, by the params keyword, but also by arrays. And while we're writing this code, it would be nice if we could reuse the overload with a single string parameter, because it has the functionality that we want to reuse, the greeting portion. And we want to keep the maintainability that we currently have so that we only have to look at one place for that greeting. So to do that, we need to build a string containing all of the names specified in the names array. And we could do this in a variety of ways. And depending upon your experience with programming and C# and the .NET framework, you could take a really long way or a really short way. It doesn't matter, because you're doing it to the knowledge that you have. And as you learn, you're going to learn new techniques of doing the same thing. And then you can always go back and modify your old code to use the new way of doing things. So if it takes you 20 or 25 lines to do this, that's perfectly fine. If it takes you one line to do it, that's fine as well. What matters is that you learn the new ways of doing it, or the better ways of doing it. That's really all that matters. Because everybody has been a beginner. I've been there. I'm raising my hand. I've got the t-shirt and I'm drinking from the coffee cup. So everybody's been a beginner. Everybody's written bad code. Everybody continues to write bad code. I don't write perfect code all the time. So, okay. So we're going to look at two ways of doing this. There's many ways that we can do it, but we're going to look at a long way, and then we are going to look at a short way. The long way involves looping over the names array and building the string based upon those names. Now, we could concatenate each of those names together, or we can use a string builder. Now, I'm going to use a string builder because, building a string such as this would be better being done with a string builder. So I'm going to call the string builder object builder. Let's also create just a temporary string. I call it a temporary string just because I'm not going to keep it. I'm going to use it to make some adjustments to the string and then send it to the say hello overload. But we will look at that later. Okay, so we need to loop over the names array. We could use a for loop if we wanted, but we don't need the index or the counter or anything like that. So all we need is the elements in the array. So a for each is going to be fine. And then we want to append each name to the builder. So we will do name. And then we want to separate the names with something. I'm going to do a comma followed by a space. So we'll end up eventually with a name, comma, space, name, comma, space, name, comma, space. Now the problem here is the last name in our list is going to have a comma space because we're not doing any type of logic to determine what is the last name. Which we could do that, but that's a whole lot more code. We can actually remove the comma and the last comma and space much easier than we could trying to determine what the last name is within our array. So I'm going to take the easy way out. And then after the loop, I'm going to assign the temp string builder.toString. So I'm going to build that string and assign it to temp. Now we still have that comma and space at the end. So we need to temp equals temp, and we will use replace. No, not replace. We will use remove because we want to remove portions of the string, and we want to remove starting from the last comma. So we will do temp dot last index of comma, and then the remove is going to remove everything with this comma and after it, so we don't have to do anything else. And then we just want to return, say hello, temp. And there we go. Perfect. Let's go to program.cs and call these. So console.writeLine. We will do the same thing with the second line. So we will see two calls to hello, or say hello, with different names. Well, partly different names. And there we go. Hello there, James, John, Jennifer, Jackie, and then Jeffrey, Josh, and Jeremy. So we have a perfectly executing say hello method. Why would we want to change it? Well, we have a better way of doing this. And we can actually do this in one line, although I'm going to do it in one line. Yeah, no reason to do it in two. Now, there is a method of the string class, string dot, and it's called join. And what this does, this takes an array, and it concatenates the array, and you can specify a separator. So it will put a separator in between the elements, but only in between elements where there are two together. So it's not going to put a separator after the last element, just before it. So it's really nice. It does a whole lot of work for us. So all we really have to do is return, say hello, then string.join. We have to specify the separator, and then we have to pass in the array. So if we run this again, we will see the same exact results. But we did that in one line as opposed to whatever we had before, 10 or so. So once again, we've seen the usefulness of arrays. We have simplified saying hello to multiple people, but then again, we have even simplified that further in conjunction with the params keyword so that we don't even have to create an array. We can just pass multiple string values to the say hello method. So arrays are very helpful even with the params keyword. Now, I did mention the limitation that all of the values have to be a string, or whatever we specify here. If we specified an int, they would all have to be integers. But there's another limitation, and that is we cannot have parameters after using the params keyword. So we can't have our names and then have an int age. Because of the params keyword, the compiler and Visual Studio are expecting everything after this to be a string. That's just the limitation that we have to deal with. But we can specify parameters before this. So we could do int age before, or person friend, something like that. That would be perfectly fine, because params, or the params parameter, is the last. So we could call this say hello method, passing an age, passing a friend, and then passing a list of names to say hello to. So that is the other limitation of this. But even still, it's a great feature and something that you will probably use quite often. And we will stop here today. Tomorrow we are going to evolve this discussion with arrays into collections, which are a lot like arrays in that we can store multiple pieces of data as elements within the collection, but we have the added benefit of being flexible. So we will no longer be bound by a fixed length. We will be able to go beyond a length, but then again, that comes at a cost of resources. So we will get started with that tomorrow. Have a great one.